Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Is upstairs okay? You sure? قال الله تبارك وتعالى وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين حنفاء. وقال الله تبارك وتعالى تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. صدق الله العظيم. Today we want to talk about something that is not really visible, but it is much more important than that which is visible. Our actions, deeds are visible. The intentions we have are not visible. But the intention that we do and act with is in fact more important than the act itself. Because an act, and we're talking about good deeds here, we're not talking about general actions of the human being. There's no doubt that the human being is responsible for their actions. They're accountable for their actions. We're talking about good deeds. Intentions are more important than the good deeds themselves, because a person can go on doing lots and lots of good deeds, but if they never understood, they never learned what kind of intention they were supposed to have, or let's say they had the wrong intention the whole time, then a whole lifetime of doing good things could go to waste. That's why one great Imam of Hadith, Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, rahmatullah alayhi, used to say that learn about the niyyah, learn about intentions. In other words, what is a good intention? What is a bad intention? How to make sure your intention is correct? How to avoid getting into the wrong intention? Make sure you learn those things. تَعَلَّمُوا النِّيَّةَ فَإِنَّهَا أَبْلَغُ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ. Because the results of the intention are more far-reaching than the results of the actions themselves. If a person performed an act, a good deed, with the wrong intention, that act comes and it's gone, it's finished. It wasn't even written as a good deed. There is nothing for it, there's no value for it in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the fact that they did it with the wrong intention continues. So, generally, the first is the intention, and when I say intention, it's not what you tell yourself you're doing it for. It's your motive for doing something. What motivated you to do it? Because it's easy for a person to tell themselves, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. But the question is, what motivated them? What motivated us to pray Salatul Dhuhr? Was it because someone told us to? Because we felt we had to? And then when we raised our hands, before we raised our hands, okay, I'm praying for Rakat Dhuhr for the sake of Allah. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking into consideration for our deeds is the motive. What caused us to do that action? So there is that motive, which is solely to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be pleased with me, and nothing else matters. And the person who makes his intention knows inside that if I get Allah, I've got everything. But if I lose Allah, then it doesn't matter what I get after that. None of it has any worth. As long as I have the pleasure of Allah on my side, and the rest is all details. But if I miss out on that one thing, then I've missed out on the one thing. Because at the end, who is going to reward us or punish us for our deeds? It's only Allah. So He's the one that I have to please. So this is one type of motive, one type of intention, that I'm going to go and do something just so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, can be pleased with me, and that's it. Once that intention is correct, then there is another whole series of things that a person has to make sure, like a checklist that they have to make sure they're doing it. Like, okay, fine, I have the right intention, but am I doing it properly or not? All of those things follow. But what we are concerned with is the motive behind the act. What caused me to do that? And the other type of intention is to please anyone or anything other than Allah, or to gain anything other than the pleasure of Allah. Anything at all. And that list of anything is a very long list, because the intention could be to please myself, to make myself happy. The intention could be to make someone else happy. The intention could be to show off and show that I'm really, really good. The intention could be to build a name for myself. The intention could be to get some kind of otherworldly gain, like money, like things, advantages. So there's no end to the list. When we say ghayrullah, other than Allah, that list has no end. Because anything other than Allah is other than Allah. But the list of pleasing Allah is very short. It only has one name, and that is Allah. That's it. People who get this part right, and remember, this is a part of Iman. Somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ, what is Iman? He said, ikhlas. To have the right intention, to make everything you do solely for the sake of Allah. What is ikhlas? It is Iman. So ikhlas, sincerity, purifying your intention, making it solely for the sake of Allah, is a part of your Iman. Without ikhlas, a person's Iman is not intact. Why? Because Iman, faith, requires that a person is doing everything with the belief that Allah is watching them. But the person who doesn't have ikhlas is doing things with the realization that others are watching me. A person who is doing something for the sake of Allah knows that Allah is going to reward me. And a person who is doing things for people is thinking that, okay, I'm going to get some kind of benefit from people out of this. Maybe it's appreciation, maybe it's praise, maybe it's a good name, maybe it's some kind of other worldly advantage. So these two things cannot go together. Either you do something for Allah or you do something for ghayrullah. Ghayrullah means something other than Allah. So that introduces a problem in our beliefs, because then a person starts thinking that, well, ultimately there are others that are going to make me or break me. There are others that are going to help me or harm me. There are others that are going to reward me or punish me. There are others that are in control of my life and my things. And that is a fundamental problem with one's belief, with one's aqeedah. So fixing our intentions is actually fixing our faith, correcting our faith. And allowing our intentions to be mixed or incorrect is to allow our belief, our Iman, to be incorrect. A person who has ikhlas will keep on looking towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything right till their last breath. And a person who doesn't have ikhlas will keep on looking towards the makhluk for everything right till their last breath. It's a huge difference. So we want to keep that list short and keep only Allah's name on that list, that why we do things is to please Allah. Now shaitan is a big thief. He's the most clever robber, thief, bandit. He knows how to attack us in ways that we don't even realize it. So his first attack is to stop the person from doing a good deed. But if the person somehow surpasses it and manages to get over that initial effort of the shaitan, then shaitan says, okay, fine, he's doing it, I can't stop him, but let me play with his intention. So just when a person is about to go, for example, go to the masjid to pray to Allah, to please Allah, shaitan says, you know what? There's so many people are going to see you there. They're going to say, yo, you're such a pious young man or young woman. Wow, mashallah. People are going to look at you and praise you, and they're going to talk about you to their children and want their children to be like you. And you're going to have such a good reputation everywhere. He'll inject that thought into your mind just where you least expect it, and you'll just be going along and saying, well, I'm going to do this anyways. But all of a sudden, what you're trying to get out of it slowly changes. And a time comes when that's what a person expects out of their good deeds. They'll expect to be praised. They'll expect to be respected. They'll expect to be appreciated for all these good deeds. And that is a sign that there was some kind of a flaw, some kind of a weakness in their intention to begin with. So, where does ikhlas come from? It comes from strengthening your iman, your tawheed, your belief in the absolute oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the root of ikhlas. The stronger your connection is with that one being, and the more your life revolves around just one, then your intentions will just follow. But no, there's only one that I have to please. There's only one that I turn to. There's only one that can help me. So I'm going to do everything for him now. And a person whose life revolves around one will never be like the one whose life revolves around many. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives examples in the Quran. That there's a slave that's owned by one person, they follow one set of instructions. There's another slave that's owned by a whole bunch of people. شُرَكَاءٌ مُتَشَاكِسُونَ فِيهِ وَرَجُلًا سَلَمًا لِرَجُلٍ هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَانِ مَثَلًا. There's one slave who has many masters. So he has to follow many sets of instructions. He has to fulfill many sets of expectations. Every master has their own expectation. Every master has a different set of things that they want that slave to do. The slave's going to go crazy. And that's exactly what happens with people who are living for the sake of someone, something other than Allah. They have so many sets of instructions that they have to follow. They have so many sets of expectations that they have to fulfill. They have so many sets of ideas that they have to uphold that they go crazy. And in the end, their life is nothing but frustration. But a person who knows I only have to please one, that's easy. It's easier to please one than to please many. It's easier to please Allah than to please the makhluk. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the moment we do something even small, even if it's inside our heart, Allah knows it right away. And He sees it for what it is, and He will reward us accordingly, and He brings us closer to Him. Every time we do something, Allah brings us closer to Him. But makhluk, creations, are such that they don't know what's happening inside us. They only see what we show them. And we could show them anything. And remember that a person who sets on a mission to please mankind or to please the creation is setting on the most impossible mission in the whole world. It's a mission that has never been achieved, and it is a mission that will never be accomplished by anyone. There is no such thing as pleasing everyone. So we please one, and we go along with it. And remember that when your life is revolving around pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make sure, He is the one who's going to make sure that you're not doing anything wrong with others as well. It's not like, okay, I have to please Allah, so forget the rest of you, I don't care. It's not like that. It's not like we start neglecting people or rejecting people or abusing people. No, I'm living for Allah. Who are you? Get lost, get out of my face. No, when we start living for Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has sets of instructions for how to deal with people, how to deal with, for example, our parents, how to deal with our relatives, how to deal with our friends, our elders, our youngsters, and all of those things follow. But the most important thing is that we start living for Allah. A person who lives for Allah will also pray for Allah. They'll do the dhikr of Allah for Allah. They'll recite the Quran for Allah. They'll give their charities for Allah. They'll do everything for Allah. Everything will follow. But a person who's living for someone else, for something else, then their mind is going to be this huge, massive ball of confusion, like a thread that's just been all wound up haphazardly, and you can't figure out how to untangle it. So the correction of intentions comes first with correction the purpose for which we are living. And then to remind ourselves, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. This is the slogan of Islam. It's only Allah that we worship, and we worship Him for Him. We don't worship Him for someone else. We worship Allah to take something from Allah. We don't worship Allah to take something from others. How could it be we're worshiping Allah, but we want to take something from others? We're worshiping Allah, but we want, for example, appreciation by others? We're worshiping Allah or doing some good deed, but we want to take results from other people? Isn't that a huge contradiction? It's a massive contradiction. So the Prophet ﷺ tells us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All acts are based just on their intentions. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. And a person will only get what they have intended. Then he gives the example, because this hadith was said by the Prophet ﷺ at the time of Hijrah, when the Muslims were migrating to Medina. So now, there could be many reasons for migrating, and you could probably join and add combined reasons for migrating as well. So he said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. What are you really migrating for? Are you migrating from one city to another? Or are you leaving something that Allah does not like to something that Allah does like? What is your hijrah? There's no mention of Medina here. There's mention of hijrah, but there's no mention of Medina. It's hijrah towards Allah and His Rasul. Whoever is truly migrating towards Allah and His Rasul, فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, that in the sight of Allah, indeed he is migrating towards Allah and His Rasul. He is going to reach Allah, he is going to reach His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was leaving Mesopotamia, Iraq, ancient Iraq, when he was leaving from there to go towards Syro-Palestine, he said, Inni muhajirun ila Rabbi. I am migrating, not to Palestine, I am migrating towards Allah. In other words, Allah has commanded me to do it. This is what the pleasure of Allah lies in. That's where I'm going to go. So in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, if you're migrating towards Allah and His Rasul, if that's what your target is, then you will get it. وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا وِامْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا. But a person who is migrating with other intentions as well. Remember we talked about motives. What's motivating you? It's like, yeah, let's go to Medina. We heard there's good trade there. We heard there's good agriculture there. We heard the weather there is good. A person who migrates for the sake of some worldly benefit, or in the example of one person, there was a lady who wanted to marry him, and she happened to live there. Now he's thinking, well, if I go there, if I migrate, I can get married as well. So the Prophet ﷺ said, just remember, whatever your motives are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to treat you accordingly. فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then you are migrating towards what you are migrating towards. And intentions are so powerful that they bring immediate results sometimes. The Prophet ﷺ gives us an example of a group that towards the later times, this army is going to come to attack the Kaaba. For all kinds of reasons, the primary reason why people go today is to see the house of Allah and to worship. But there's going to be a group of people that moves towards the Kaaba to destroy it. يغزو جيش الكعبة فإذا كانوا ببيداء من الأرض يخسف بأولهم وآخرهم. They're going to reach these flat plains before Mecca, and the ground is going to open up and swallow all of them. So one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ asked, the earth swallow all of them, وَفِيهِمْ أَسْوَاقُهُمْ وَمَنْ لَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ. That sometimes when a large army moves, the tradition was that whenever there's a large group of people moving towards the desert, others who are traveling for other reasons will also join them, like businessmen and merchants, because they get security and protection from this large group. Travelers that are moving on their own. So why would all of them, this is her question, that there are people that are coming with different reasons, with different motives. That one army, it's understood. But you, O Prophet of Allah, have said that everyone who is with them is going to be swallowed up by the earth. So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, يُخْسَفُ بِأَوَّلِهِمْ وَآخِرِهِمْ. In this world, all of them will be swallowed by the earth. ثُمَّ يُبْعَثُونَ عَلَى نِيَّاتِهِمْ. Then on the day of judgment, they will be raised according to their intentions. But all of this happened because of one wicked intention that these people were moving with. It affected them immediately. It affected all the people around them. Even those who did not have that mission in mind, did not have that objective in mind to go and do something to the Kaaba. But the fact that they were with them was enough to get them destroyed here in this dunya. Now shaitan will come and inject different kinds of ideas in our minds. And he does this with religious people. If he can't get them to discard the deed altogether, he'll get them to change their reason for doing it. And he'll put different things, different ideas. But the Quran makes it very clear that whoever aims to get things in this world, من كان يريد الحياة الدنيا وزينتها نوفي إليهم أعمالهم فيها وهم فيها لا يبخسون. People who want this worldly life, that's what they're living for, Allah says they will get the full compensation of their efforts here, but there is nothing for them in akhirah. And the other ayat, من كان يريد العاجلة عجلنا له فيها ما نشاء لمن نريد. A person who wants gains just in this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will give him his returns to the extent that I want here in this dunya. But then, because this person has nothing left over for akhirah, there's going to be nothing for him there except for punishment. Now, akhirah, the hereafter, the afterlife, is a very big concept. It's not a small thing. And for a mu'min, for a believer, akhirah is what life is all about. It's not about here and now. It's about what happens to me in the afterlife, which is never going to end. So imagine a person knows they're about to undertake a journey, but they don't take anything along with them. There's nothing. The journey they have to take, and once they set on that journey, they can't come back. What will become the condition of that person? They're going to be miserable. Because you don't reach where you want to go to in terms of destination, and there's no way you can come back. Like the example of someone who travels on a long road trip but doesn't fill up their tank with gas. When they reach the outskirts of the city where there is no gas station, that's it. Their gas is finished and they're stranded. Now they're stuck. So what do I do? Well, in order to move forward on the road, you need gasoline in your car. In order to move ahead in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in akhirah, you need to have a stockpile, a huge stock of deeds. And what kind of deeds? Those that have been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not the kind of deeds that have been rejected. So how do you get a deed accepted? So accepted deeds, think of accepted deeds as good currency. And deeds that you can see but they're not accepted, think of them as counterfeit money, as fake cash. It looks like there's stacks and stacks and piles of it, but is it worth anything? It's not worth anything. In fact, if you get caught with it, it's a crime. To be in possession of those things is a criminal offense. That's the same thing with real deeds and fake deeds. Fake deeds are what we do when people see them. It looks like the deed was done, but inside there is nothing behind it. Real deeds are like real currency, real cash. You can see it and it's worth whatever it is. Whatever it says on it, that's what it's worth. If it says $20, it's worth $20. If it says 100, it's worth 100. And counterfeit money, the only thing it's worth is the paper that it's printed on, and sometimes not even that. So it could say $50 on it or $20 on it. It's worth maybe 2 cents. And sometimes it's not worth anything. And it's always a liability to have with you. So people will be presented on the Day of Judgment, and everyone is, of course, turning towards what deeds do we have? What deeds are we missing? What is Allah going to do with us today? So there will be some people who will have piles and piles of good deeds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at them and say that you didn't do any of this. And you say, well, it's all there. Yes, it's there, but none of it was for me. So you did this deed to please that person. You did this one to please him. You did that one to please her. You did this one to please them. Go to them for your reward today, just like you turned to them for your reward in dunya. You wanted approval from them, appreciation from them. You wanted respect from them. You wanted what? Adoration, praise, whatever it was. You wanted it from them. Go get your reward today also from them. What a scary thing. And can anyone compensate anyone on the Day of Judgment? No. So this is what led the great people of this ummah to be extremely, extremely careful about their motives. And they realized that you don't just have to do deeds, you have to protect them to make sure that they go with you from this dunya. So when you go into your grave, the deeds follow you into your grave. And when you're raised on the Day of Judgment, the deeds are raised with you. And they knew that the deeds that we do to please someone other than Allah, they're not going with us. They're useless, they're empty. But how? How do you get through it when, even as a normal human being, you have this awareness that people are watching me? I'm doing something, people are going to note it. If it's something good, people are going to appreciate it. How do you get around that? Even a pious practicing individual is prone to these thoughts. Someone who reads Quran will say, well, people are going to praise my Quran. Somebody who's learning deen is going to say, people are going to appreciate me because I've learned deen. Someone who's doing some work of deen, some khidmat somewhere, work of da'wat, somebody's giving talks, whatever it is, you say, oh yes, people are going to like this. People are going to like this, or people did like it. People are liking it. People are going to appreciate it. What do? This is where we find some beautiful instructions from the elders of this ummah. For example, Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi says that make sure you have a stockpile of deeds that no one knows about. Make sure you have a stockpile of deeds that nobody knows about. Because most of the deeds that you do that are known by people end up going to waste. Somewhere along the line, your mindset changes. Somewhere along the line, these thoughts come into your mind that, okay, yeah, people are watching me, or people are going to like this, or people are going to appreciate me, or whatever it is. Your attention deviates from Allah to things, to conditions, to people around you. So make sure you have enough good deeds that you've done in secret, and bank on those. He says, don't rely on the deeds, on your good deeds that are known by people. Don't rely on them. Do them because you have to do them. But make sure you have enough deeds that you've done secretly that nobody knows about. And the worst thing a person could do is start doing deeds in a way that people learn about them, people know about them. What we call showing off. Doing deeds so that people can learn, so that people can see, rather, so that people can notice us, and this and this and this and this. Ibrahim Nakhai rahmatullahi alayhi was a great faqih of Kufa. He was a tabi'i. Met many Sahaba and was trained by them, raised by them. He spent a good amount of time with the students of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. And of course, he was a very pious person. But it was his habit that if he was reading the Quran and he heard someone's about to come into his room, he'd just cover it and pretend he wasn't doing anything. And he did this for years because he did not want that deed of his that he was doing in private to then become public, and then his intention be challenged or be changed. Many of you have probably heard the name of Imam Zainul Abidin, rahimahullah. He was also a tabi'i. He's the grandson of Ali radiallahu anhu, the son of Hussein radiallahu anhu. Now, people used to look at him and think that this is such a stingy person. And everyone thought this except for the poor people, because they knew how much money he is spending on them, and he would do it secretly. When he passed away, he was a resident of Medina. There were people who had become accustomed to, had become used to food showing up in front of their house in the middle of the night. There would be wheat and bread and all kinds of things, sacks of it, in front of their doors in the middle of the night. And for years, they had been noticing this. In fact, that's what those poor families were surviving on. They had nothing of their own. When he died, they noticed for the first time that there's no food. And that's when they made the connection that it must have been him. And the people that washed his body for janazah, they saw these marks, calluses all over his back. And those are the kind of calluses that you see, calluses like when your skin is all worn out and it's all tough and hard and dark marks on his skin. Those marks would only be seen on the bodies of laborers, people who are used to really heavy labor. And this was a man who happened to be quite wealthy, affluent, and lived, based on what people understood, a very easy and comfortable life. And that's when all of the pieces of the puzzle fit together. That all his life, for these years, he's been carrying these sacks of food to people's homes in the middle of the night, at a time when even his own servants don't know about it. Even they're sleeping. He gets up and does this. And there were 100 families in Medina that he was sustaining with his own hands, going and bringing the food to them. No one knew about it. No one had to know about it. And people only found out after he left this world. That is doing something secretly. That's building your stockpile of secret deeds that no one knows about, no one needs to know about. And the Prophet ﷺ set this pattern for us, set this way for us. And that's what every one of these people was trying to follow. When he talks about those 7 people that will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh, those of you who remember the hadith will remember that one of them will be a person who spends with his right hand so secretly that even his own left hand doesn't know about it. رَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِيَمِينِهِ فَأَخْفَاهَا مِنْ شِمَالِهِ. So secretly. In other words, nobody knows that he's doing this. So we do good deeds, we keep them a secret. People traveled with Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullah alayhi. He was a great muhaddith, faqih. So he had this habit of course, praying a lot of nafil salat, a lot of tahajjud. But he would do it at a time, only at a time when people around him were sleeping. Now he used to travel in expeditions. There were battles that he took part in, battles against the Roman empires and things like that. So he would wait for all of his comrades to fall asleep, show them, pretend that he's sleeping, and then get up in the middle of the night and start praying salat. And one of his friends or khadims, he says, I had a feeling that there is something about this person that I don't quite know about. I want to see what he does at night. I've never seen him worshiping. He's such a great man, such a great muhaddith. He got such a huge reputation in the whole world. What does he do at night? Whenever I look at him, he's just sleeping. So he says that I pretended to sleep, and I saw that he's watching me, and he's also pretending to sleep. And after some time, he gets up and starts praying. And prays and prays and prays until it's close to the time for everyone else to wake up. He goes and lies back down. So this person who had been watching him, observing him all night, he said, I saw what you were doing last night. He said, what are you talking about? He said, no, I saw. When you thought that I was sleeping, I wasn't. Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullahi was so upset by this that he stopped talking to that person, just kept a distance. He says, I still traveled with him, but he was never friendly with me ever again, because of this fear that the fact that I had seen him is now going to come into his mind at some point, that, oh, so-and-so saw me, now people know what a devout worshipper I am. And this is exactly what he didn't want to happen, and he remained upset. Once he was traveling, they stopped at Raqqa, and there was an inn that he used to stay at every time he passed through that area. So there was a young man there who used to come and spend time with him and take care of him, look after him and all of that. One time when he passed through there, he didn't see that boy. And he said, where's so-and-so? They said, he's been arrested. Why? Because he had a debt of 10,000 dirhams that he could not pay. The person took him to court, and so he was put in jail until he comes up with the money. So Ibn Mubarak rahimahullah went about, did his things, and came back, got some money. He went to the person that was owed the money, gave him 10,000 dirhams, but he said, look, I'm giving this to you on one condition, that you will never ever mention my name. So the person said, okay, I will not. The money was arranged. The man was released. Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullahi alayhi left the city. He didn't sit around waiting. He made the payment, made sure that the boy was released, and left. Now, in the meantime, this young man hears that Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullahi was visiting the city, and he asked about him. And because he was very attached to him, he wanted to see him. He said, "Where is he?" "Oh no, he left. He left." So this boy got a faster animal and went and caught up to him just to say salam. So Ibn al-Mubarak rahimahullah acts like he doesn't know anything. He says, "How are you? I didn't see you this time." He said, "Oh, I was thrown in jail because of this debt." He said, "Oh, are you okay?" He said, "Alhamdulillah, somebody came and paid." He says, "Really? Congratulations, you're lucky. Keep thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." And that's it. This boy only found out that it was Ibn al-Mubarak rahmatullahi after the man had died. When Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullahi passed away, then that man who had received the money from him told everyone that that's what he had done. And then the young man found out. But in his own lifetime, no. It's so strange. We live in a time when we're announcing our good deeds like anything. And of course, we are not in a position to judge anyone's intention, right? But seriously, what happens on social media today? I mean, I've seen posts. People are posting that they went for Salatul Fajr. They're posting it. People are posting that they did their tilawat today. People are posting that they're doing dhikr. Yeah, it's Friday. I'm reading my salawat on the Prophet ﷺ. And maybe they're just doing that. Maybe it could be to encourage people. But you don't have to tell people you're doing it in order to encourage them. You're not like the great imam of this time that people are going to see you and they're going to be motivated. But you're just advertising it. And I recall the statement of Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah. He said, أَدْرَكْنَا النَّاسَ وَهُمْ يُرَاءُونَ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ. He said there was a time when we used to see people a show off was someone who showed off their good deeds. But he said now people are showing off even that what they're not really doing. They're showing off what they pretend to do, not even what they do. People are pretending to be pious and then they're showing it off. They're pretending to be like this, generous, for example, and then showing it off. Everything is about capitalizing on some kind of a market. There's a market for everything today. Capitalizing on this audience, capitalizing on that audience, capitalizing on this group, capitalizing on Allahu Akbar. So our deen has become a token that we are using today to earn some kind of a worldly gain. And remember, popularity is also a worldly gain. Respect, praise, these are all worldly gains. Just like money is a worldly gain. So people are using their deeds to capitalize on some audience that's going to give them that worldly gain that they're looking for, such as praise. Capitalize on another audience for respect. Capitalize on another audience, and some people's audiences are small and others' audiences are larger. But this is a very dire situation. The time where people were hiding their sadaqat, hiding their charities, to the time where it's being announced openly. So-and-so has given this much, and so-and-so has given this much, and today so-and-so donated this much, and today so-and-so donated this much. If you read the statements of the tabi'is and atba'ut tabi'in, they used to say that you should not even expose those deeds that are purely for the sake of Allah to people. What about those deeds that have mixed intentions? You're exposing those to people? I mean, who are we? Who are we? Hassan Basri rahmatullah alayhi, who was the great tabi'i, the great imam of his time, used to say that I've spent time with people that if you were to compare me to them, I'd be like a bandit in front of them, a robber, a looter. That's what I am in comparison to them. But it's strange. Today, instead of depreciating ourselves and putting ourselves in our proper position, we elevate ourselves, we raise ourselves, and everyone thinks they're immune to the problems that could be faced by other people. We take it for granted that we are mukhlis. And that's perhaps our biggest problem. We take it for granted that we are sincere, even though the people above us took it for granted that they're insincere. In their sight, in their eyes, they were insincere. They're not worth anything. Their actions are not worth anything. And that's why they said, look, if anything else happens here, if people start finding out about it, my mind is going to get even more distracted. And now that deed is completely gone. It's better for me that I hide it. So they took it for granted that they were insincere and they needed to work. They felt they needed to work for the sake of building sincerity. We take it for granted that we are sincere. And we demand that that sincerity be acknowledged and our deeds be acknowledged. And remember, whenever we seek acknowledgement for our deeds in dunya, there is no acknowledgement for them in akhirah. There is no acknowledgement. Our ibadat today, our great ibadat, have become they've become a token to build our profile in the sights of people. I'm someone who's gone for Umrah. I'm somebody who's gone for Hajj. I'm somebody who prays 5 times a day. I'm someone who goes to the masjid. I'm somebody who prays Jum'ah. I'm someone who does this work of deen, and I'm someone who does that work of deen. All of these have become tokens for some sort of worldly gain. And there is nothing in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of value for any of these deeds, and that is why our deeds have no effect. So when one of the Salaf Salih were asked, why is it that the kalam of the people before us had so much effect, and our kalam does not have so much effect? He said, well, it's because they spoke for the glory of Islam, for the salvation of mankind, and for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. تكلموا لعز الإسلام ونجاة النفوس ورضا الرحمن. ونحن, us people, what do we speak for? فإنما نتكلم لعز النفوس. We speak so that we are appreciated and honored. And we speak for the sake of pleasing the makhluk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How could they have the same effect? So we need to create a trend in society where our deeds are nothing more than a token to get close to Allah. And we don't just do deeds, we start protecting them. And one of the ways to protect your deeds is through secrecy and not announcing our deeds. And we start building this stockpile of huge deeds that no one knows about except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There were some tabi'is and atba' tabi'in, they fasted for years, even their families didn't know about it. They'd leave home, take their food, like people today, they pack their lunch boxes. They would take their lunch with them, on the way give it away as sadaqah, spend the whole day, and come back at iftar time and sit with their family and eat. So the family would think, yeah, yes, he ate when he was at work. And they did this for years. As opposed to posting on Facebook that, oh, the first of Ramadan, oh, it was so hard, I am so thirsty, and suhoor was so tough. And I was talking about this in our dars of tafsir on Thursday, that when a person's objective is to fulfill their base desires, then shaitan takes over. And it's one of the base desires to be known, to be appreciated. We were talking about shaitan, the story of shaitan and Adam alayhi salam. So it's a carnal desire, it's a base, primitive desire to be respected, to be honored, to be feared, to be awed. So whenever a person reverts to that side of them, shaitan will take over, and shaitan will always take them to their intellect. And their intellect will justify what they're doing. Shaitan justified what he was doing. So this is what happens with us. This is what will happen. And we'll think of clever little ways to hint at our good deeds. We'll hint. We'll drop these little hints. Like I remember my teacher telling me about, they went to someone's house to visit them. They went in Jawla. And the brother says to his son, he says, son, bring those glasses. He wanted to serve them Zamzam. Bring those glasses that we brought on our 4th Hajj. So the Shaykh just put his head down. He wanted to laugh, but he just put his head down and kept it inside. This is it. This is what deeds have become today. A token to gain appreciation in the eyes of other people, which is worth nothing in the sight of Allah. It renders that deed, it brings it right down to a common denominator of 0. Nothing. And to want to be appreciated, to want everything of ours to be known, to be acknowledged. My teacher used to tell us another story. I've told this story at some point. That there was a young man who wanted to get married. He was new in the area. He didn't have much. He just started working. He didn't have any fancy clothes. He had made some friends, 1 or 2 friends in that area. I told him, look, I'm getting married here. I don't really have much. I don't really know anyone. They said, don't worry, we'll look after it. And one of them said, you know what, don't go and buy an expensive outfit. I'll just loan you mine, the one that I used. So he says, oh, that's great. So they have this, this kind of a long coat called a sherwani. So the party is held and the groom is wearing, his friend's sherwani. So the friend takes the groom and says, come on, let me take you to meet a group of friends. So he takes him to them and he says, he greets everyone and says, everyone, I want to introduce you to the groom. This is the groom. The sherwani is mine. And the groom is so embarrassed. What would you do if someone did that to you? You'd feel like, I wish the ground would just open and I would fall inside and disappear. He was so hurt and insulted. He goes to this guy and he says, is that why you did this? To embarrass me in front of all of these people? I said, oh, I'm so sorry. It just came out. I'm really sorry. It was just a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. Calms the guy down. Then he takes him to meet another group of friends. And he says, hi everyone, I want to introduce you to the groom. And the sherwani is his too. So there he goes again. And again, the poor groom, now it's his wedding, so he's stuck. If it was someone else, he would have just got up and left. But what's he supposed to do? And again, he gets mad and the guy calms him down and this and that. And then he says, okay, I'm not going to mention this sherwani again. And that's how he calmed them down. He says, I'm not going to mention the sherwani again. All right. But then he takes him to meet another group of people. And he says, hi, everyone, I want you to meet the groom, and I'm not saying anything about the sherwani. The human being has this weakness which turns into a disease, the disease of acknowledgement, that I need to be acknowledged. Everything I've done needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be appreciated. People need to know what I've done. Even though people don't need to know what we've done. Only Allah needs to know what we've done. Is He not enough for us? Alaysa Allahu bikafin abda? Is Allah not enough for us? And what is the point if the whole world acknowledges us, but Allah doesn't acknowledge us? If the whole world acknowledges our deeds, but Allah doesn't acknowledge them, they're of no use. So while we're in this mode of getting closer to the month of Ramadan, and Ramadan, the fasts of Ramadan are all based on ikhlas. This is why the value of siyam is so high in the sight of Allah, because you can't just look at a person and tell if they're fasting or not. You look at a person who's praying, you know they're praying. The salat is visible. Hajj is visible. Giving charity, it's visible. Siyam, it's not visible. Person could be walking around in these long days. Person could be walking around all day. You don't know if they're fasting or not. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, As-sawmu li wa ana ajzi bihi. Fasting is something that is exclusively for me. And He says, I am going to personally reward the person for it. Unless, of course, a person takes that same fast and starts using it again for these same things with wrong intentions. So we want to cure this disease in society, the disease of acknowledgement, because it exists everywhere, in every religious circle. Person who does something, for any Muslim organization, institution, whatever it is, whether it's a mosque or a school or some kind of a charity, they want, first thing that they demand is acknowledgement. They want to be acknowledged. And half of the time, not just acknowledged for what they've done, but acknowledgement for what they pretend to do. It's all about acknowledgement. And it's a disease. That's why Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayh undertook this huge journey, this massive journey, in which he left his place and he traveled for years, for almost 10 years, because he thought that he was in danger. At a very young age, he had become very prominent. He was an outstanding speaker, a powerful debater, and an amazing scholar. All his seniors would submit to his opinion when he presented his opinion on something. And it became a name, he became an icon. Ghazali said. Imam Ghazali started thinking about this, that really, what is this? He said, if I look at all my deeds, all my achievements, what's the best achievement that I think I have? He said, it's teaching, it's educating. And he said, even that, I don't think I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. I'm doing it because I have a name for it, I have a knack for it. And if I continue to do this, this is going to destroy me. So he thought and thought and thought for almost a year. He remained in this state of confusion and being very upset with himself and worried about his akhirah. And he said, you know what? I have to get out of here. I have to go somewhere where nobody knows me. And I have to stay like that until this thing comes out of my heart and I become a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only for the sake of Allah. He went and traveled. For years he traveled. One day, he was in Damascus, going through one of the schools there. He was longing to see a school. He'd been away from the institution for so long. So he was walking by the classrooms, and he heard one of the teachers who was instructing his class say, "Qala al-Ghazali." He says, no, this is what I've been running from. My trip is not over yet. I need to keep going. I want to keep going and moving and stay away from this until people forget who I am. I don't want anyone to know me. And that's the sign of someone who is true with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What a siddiq is someone who is completely true with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi says, I wish all of this knowledge that I have, people could take it and no one would know that I am behind it. So that is the pattern of Islam. It's the pattern of Muslims. What we are doing today is far away from that pattern. So let us build a trend where instead of showing off our deeds, our work, we hide our work. We keep it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't unnecessarily advertise what we're doing. And we start building that stockpile of secret good deeds that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about. And we try to include all of our actions in that secret stockpile. And we break this trend of ostentation and showing off and bragging and looking for acknowledgement, seeking acknowledgement openly or subtly. And we will see that we will become true slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our acting in this way will bring others close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our deeds will be preserved, intact, where we can find them multiplied many, many, many times with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.